Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla, let's go over the market, let's figure out what is happening with the stock and of course, well, what we can expect moving forward. So with all that being said and done, let's just jump right into it. Tesla closing the day once again down, this time at 175.34 cents. Which is going to be just almost 2% on the day for the red, of course, which at least compared to the QQQ is maybe a slight outperformance, considering QQQ was down a pretty respectable 1.5%. Maybe Tesla hung in there a little bit better than expected, I guess. But let's talk about it. So what does this mean, right? I mean, we're in obviously a little bit of a stressful situation, to say the least. If you're a bull, at least. If you're a bear, you're chilling. If you're a bear, you're having a phenomenal time. Now, let's talk about it. So the first most important thing to understand here is the fact that, well, we closed above 175, thankfully. Not convincingly, I'll be completely honest. It's definitely not a convincing close above 175, but above it nonetheless. So at least there's that, right? The weekly candle, of course, closure here, you can see essentially closing at new lows, right? The weekly candle, like it actually made new lows and it closed at new lows ever since way back pretty much in, May of 23, right? So pretty much a year ago. So not ideal, but again, looking at it on the weekly time frame, right, we are of course approaching a pretty substantial resistance support, right? 175 technically is the first one, but even below that, right, we still have the bottom of the channel, right, that we bounced off of several times, right, many times, even including here technically. So we are approaching it once again, and we're technically at the top part of the channel right now, pretty much, at least were the lowest point of the week, which was around that 173-ish area. But again, for next week, this can go easily to, as low as about like even 162 at the very, very lowest point. Like that is not like, it's not impossible, right? It sucks to see, hear that, but it's not impossible. So just take that into account, right? On the weekly chart, we still have a nice bullish divergence that is definitely losing a little bit of steam, right? We pretty much need to bounce like right here, right now, in order for this bullish divergence on the weekly to at least have some merit still, because it's on the risk of getting lost if we actually do come to the bottom of this channel around like, let's just say 165 to make it simple. It is going to start most likely losing this bullish divergence, unfortunately. However, the daily one most likely will still hold if we do come to the bottom of the channel, which again, on the daily is also somewhere around the mid-ish, we'll say 160s as well. So, that is still very much in the cards, especially with honestly a little bit of a weak close. Now, I'm going to talk about some things, especially in the options flow, that maybe things will turn around next week, right? There is some substantial bullish flow for Tesla coming in pretty much towards like the last hour to two of the day today. So we'll talk about that. But I'm not going to lie, not a convincing close here. Definitely wanted to see a little bit more strength, especially into the close, to at least see more of the wick from the bottom that, really show that this 175 area is, really acting as a support, right? But closing this close to it with such a small wick under it shows that the sellers either really didn't step in or they did, but the buyers just overwhelmed them. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it right now. I think the chances, technically, as long as we're above 175, we shouldn't see below, right? We shouldn't see the 165-ish, but if we start losing 175, and especially if we start turning it into a resistance, same how we did over here, right? We broke below 180, came back up, and now both these candles turned into resistance, even arguably today, right? Same concept. If that applies to 175, that most likely means that 165 is next. That's probably next, right? As painful as that is, unfortunately, that still might be in the cards. Now, that's kind of the main thing I'm looking at it here. Now, if we go back to the weekly candle, or weekly chart rather, very quickly, we zoom out a little bit here, we're gonna have a nice looking volume profile over here on the right, which you can see, right? This kind of, 180s-ish area acted as a massive support, right? And it did. We had a beautiful bounce off of it too. Unfortunately, again, we closed obviously below 180. Number one, is not good, right? But the volume doesn't really increase once again until we pretty much just enter the 160s, right? The second we enter the 160s, the volume does spike again, right? And this is where we can find that bounce, like I talked about, pretty much around the kind of mid to high-ish 160s, right? This is where the volume starts increasing once again, where we can find that bounce. But I'm not gonna lie, it's not looking ideal. Like it definitely can look better, right? This is not like, if I had no bias whatsoever, I couldn't care less for Tesla or Elon or anything like that, and I was just looking at it just as a chart, just looking for potential opportunity to trade, and I saw this chart, I would definitely not be entering right now. I'll just say that this is not a chart that I would personally most likely be entering right now. It's like with this kind of look, with this kind of weekly closure, I would most likely be patient about it. I'll most likely just wait, see how it plays out, see how it tests the potential bottom of this channel, and if there's any meaningful bullish reaction. And if I was really safe about it, I would most likely wait for this little tight range over here, right? Bottom of this channel, with the resistance of this upper, downtrend, if you will, up here ever since, the 260s. I would probably just wait for this to play out. There's really no rush to enter here. So again, that would be like my super unbiased opinion. That's what I would most likely do if I just came along this chart and I'm like, is there an opportunity here? Probably not yet at least, right? Until whether we break out over here or we really break below this, and this would be the short, this would be the long. Sometimes it's really that simple. And that's the way I look at it right now. So that's kind of the main perspective on Tesla I have right here, right now, right? Again, not the best look in the entire world. Definitely could look better. We're obviously below both bands on the daily, which obviously shows that we have a continued downtrend, right? Yeah, not looking good, right? Now, if you go over to the 1 hour chart and we bring over extended hour trading, right? The one thing that's disappointing is this. This morning, we actually had a gap up, right? We had a gap up this morning. We were trading around the 182-ish area, which was looking good. We actually came back down to the 180 and it acted as a support. It actually acted as a support initially too. And even when we opened on the market, it also acted as a support and it was looking good. Like this was the play I was looking for. I was looking for something like this, like I talked about in the video yesterday, a gap up above 180 on the lower volume. It's easier to kind of quote unquote manipulate, right? If you will. And that would be great. We turn 180 into support, nice gap up, turn 180 into support. And then we rally up to about that 187, 188-ish, give or take, of course, area. That was the play. And it was looking primed this morning until, well, Tesla, unfortunately, in its typical fashion, couldn't hold the gains, completely just puked it all out. To be fair, maybe the market was part of that because the market did puke itself today as well. So that could have been why. But, the thing I'd want to be seeing on a market day like this is I'd want to see Tesla have strength on a day when the market is puking, right? Because it hasn't been following the market in the uptrend, right? This market has been skyrocketing. Tesla has been skyrocketing into Earth's core, essentially, right? So what you want to be seeing here is you want to see a rotation of money, essentially, to go from the market, maybe like things like NVIDIA, AMD, the chip sector, and you want it to come back into things like Tesla, things like Apple, things like Google. Apple and Google did actually get a decent bounce today, right? They obviously gave up most of their gains, right? Naturally, but at least they had some bounce here, right? Tesla did it, and that's the disappointing. That's the part that shows that it's just weaker than you really want it to be, right? That's the disappointing part, in my opinion. So, which really begs the question, if the market decides to finally correct, which I don't think it's ready to yet, it's still holding up over all these uptrends, right? I don't think these uptrends are bearish yet. If we lose both of these bands on the market, then the correction may begin, in my opinion. But so far, the market still looks bullish, right? There's no reason to be short this market unless you're just trying to pinpoint the top, if you will. So, but the question still lies. If the market does correct, let's say the market finally starts correcting, like whenever that may be, if Tesla's also weak on weak market days, what does that mean for Tesla moving forward if the market corrects? That's the $1 million question that no one knows the answer to. In theory, you would think that because Tesla has been disconnected, money will flow into Tesla because it's so weak, flow into Apple, flow into Google, that have been not really following this, rally pretty much made by the chips, but we'll see. But again, strictly through technical analysis, the situation we find ourselves in is pretty painful, right? But, also that requires, unfortunately, some patience until we get a breakout of one of these two directions, right? The bottom of the channel or this resistance of this, downtrend that we've been in, that we have gotten resisted on this bear flag so far. And now we're trying to base around this 175 level. We'll see if that's the case. Again, like I said, if not, we're coming back down to the 160s, easily to the 160s, no question about that. And that most likely will happen. Not ideal. The MACD has flipped the bearish once again. I'm not going to lie. Not ideal there, right? That could be better, right? We also have, of course, the RSI, setting up a bullish divergence. There's absolutely a bullish divergence here. There's no doubt about that, right? For instance, if I bring out this right here, right? As we're essentially making lower lows like this, right? Even on this rally or on the sell-off, right? So again, the low for the RSI that was extremely low, by the way, was at 16, right? Was set back when we pretty much came down to 180 the first time post earnings, right? Roughly. Set up a small bullish divergence, had a nice rally, but now we're actually setting up a larger bullish divergence, right? As we're selling off, we're setting up higher lows on the RSI. So that's a good sign. Like that is a good sign. That is something to look forward to if you're a bull and you're really just waiting for this thing to find some form of life, because it really has been having issues doing that. But that is a good sign. That is a promising sign. The issue with bullish divergences is that, especially a big one like this on the daily, it takes time. These things take time to play out. And it still opens up the possibility of 165, because I still think the bullish divergence will still be intact if we go to 165. But these things take time. That's the problem. So, if you're impatient, it's going to be a little bit painful and probably a bumpy ride, honestly, until we finally potentially play this out. Now, let's go over to the options flow very quickly for Tesla. Let's talk about what is going on over here. So, for the most part, Tesla options flow is all over the place. The thing that's important, though, the thing that really started piquing my interest personally are these ones. So, first we have over here, right, around 2:40 to 2:50 p.m. today, pretty much 4 million, 2 million, and 1 million in calls, right? So that's a lot, close to 8 million in calls right there, right? 170 calls, one of them being above the ask, pretty much the 4 million one being above the ask for March 28th. Okay, that's a good sign. That sounds pretty bullish to me, right? It's in the money at 170, so they're playing it pretty safe, clearly, right? It would be even more bullish if this was out of the money, like let's say 180 or 185. This would be like really, really bullish, but nonetheless, still phenomenal because it is quite short dated, right? If I'm not mistaken, 28th is only, it's only 3 weeks away. So is the market closed on Friday? Market must be closed on Friday. Sorry, my mistake. I don't know why. Oh, yeah, sorry. Some of them are 22. Yeah, this is 28. So maybe the market is closed on that Friday, the 29th. Anyway, regardless, it's for the 28th, which is a Thursday. So, it's not very far out. It's like 2.5-ish weeks out, close to 3 weeks, right? So maybe that's why it's in the money, but nonetheless, that's a lot. And on top of that, right, not too long after that, a lot of bullish calls came in for Tesla. Pretty much every single one of these, literally, actually not pretty much, literally all of these, if you were to add this up, I don't even know how much it equals to. Pretty much every single one of these is like 250 to 300K. So add these all up. This is probably another like 6-7 million right here, maybe more. March 15th, though, these are March 15th, 175 calls, which are pretty much at the money at this point, right? And they came in before this little, tiny sell-off that happened on Tesla came in pretty much towards the end of the day, right? They came in somewhere right before the sell-off actually started happening. So that's pretty interesting. A lot of money came into calls. So some people, some whale, someone somewhere, a group of people somewhere, I don't know. They're clearly expecting Tesla to not crash and instead rally next week. Because again, these are weekly calls. A lot of money on them too. So we'll see how that plays out. And again, pretty much all of them except for this one for 175 calls. So that's interesting. That's pretty unusual. I'm not gonna lie. This is quite unusual. So we'll see how this actually plays out, right? But all in all, that's kind of the main thing I am looking at right now. So again, we closed above 175, so at least there's that, right? It could have been worse. In all honesty, it absolutely could have been worse, but it also could have been a lot better in my opinion, right? So we'll see how this plays out. But that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. And yeah, so we'll see how next week plays out. The volume is decreasing though. The one thing I will note though is that the volume on this massive sell-off today was pretty low. It was a pretty low volume on such a red candle. So that could be something nice for the bulls to potentially cling on to as potential hope. So we'll see how that also ends up playing out. But all in all, again, bulls are clearly expecting this to rally. People are betting substantially on Tesla to get a bounce from here, especially next week. We'll see if that holds up true. As long as 175 holds, in my opinion, it is very possible. But if 175 breaks and we start turning it into resistance and we close below it, a daily candle below it, we're off to 160s, which is going to be pretty painful. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing. Let me know what you think down below. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on Monday. Peace.